Today we're going to talk about how business owners in the construction trades can use our blueprint to work less and make more money. When we start talking about the blueprint, we break it apart into two parts. First part, internal, second part, external. So let's start with the internal processes first. So first thing I would do is personally, as the business owner, what is your goal? My goal was I wanted to make X amount of dollars per year, and I wanted to work less than 40 hours a week to get there. And I recommend you do the same thing. So let's just say your goal is to make $125,000 and in a year, and you don't want to work nights and weekends, right? That's a perfectly fine goal to start with. Write it down, right? That's the parameters as to which you got to make decisions now. The next step is to define your leadership style. This doesn't have to get super complicated. Do you like doing the work? Do you want to lead? Do you want to be somewhere in the middle? So if you are, I want to be out there swinging a hammer or pulling wires, then that's you. There's nothing wrong with that. And you need to know what that is so that you can define who you need to hire and where they should be, right? So I would focus on where do I want to be? How much do I want to make? And then what do I want to physically or actually do in the business? Do I want to be the visionary and just guide people? Do I want to be actually doing all the work or more of the work? Or do I want to be somewhere in between? So that's entrepreneur, manager versus technician is the terms that we use for that. So now we've defined our goal, discussed our leadership style. Now let's talk brand. So what's my brand identity? Do I want to be the Walmart version? In other words, I'm the cheapest and I'm going to do the most of that. Do I want to be the premium version where I do very little of it and I add exceptional value and I can charge more? Now that you've set your goal, identified who you are as a leader, and have set your brand, now let's talk about what that looks externally, right? So we got our brand. That brand is now client-facing or customer-facing. What we'll do next is we'll start to look at our workflows and standardize them. A great example. Let's say I'm a roofer. Our process is we only use lumber yards that will lull the shingles up to the top of the roof, right? Now that seems pretty basic, but early on in your business, maybe that wasn't always the case. And so you think about things like that, where what can I do to work more efficiently and standardize my workflow? How do I order products? Where do I order them? When are they delivered? And it's literally just a matter of stepping back and walking through a process, almost like walking through a job from the lead, I should say, all the way to the final, and look for ways that we can make sure everybody's doing that optimally, right? Johnny may do it this way and Jimmy may do it that way. And if it's minor, we don't want to be control freaks, but if it's a big deal and it's say 15 minutes a day times 4 people, it really adds up. So you start looking at your workflows and standardizing them so that everybody's working the same. Next, we're going to look at how we're going to manage projects in general. And that might just be Excel. It could just be a notebook. There's nothing wrong with that, all depending on your scale. Or you're going to look to go to some type of software that's going to allow you to, like a CRM, customer relationship management software, where you can work from all the way from the lead to the end process and track, all the way along the way. So how you track those projects isn't as important as are you tracking them, and do you know the steps of each one to make sure that each project is at the right phase and moving appropriately. So we've talked internally, then we talked about workflows. Now we're going to take a step back and look at the big picture. And that's going to come back to you as a leader are you effectively managing your own time? It sounds really basic, but it's honestly low-hanging fruit. There's a theory that work expands to fill time, meaning if I don't say I'm only going to work on XYZ every day for this long, and then I'm going to work on this, and then I'm going to work on that, you can let your day get filled up with a bunch of crap that doesn't matter. Perfect example is, let's say I'm going to set a rule. I don't answer my phone, period, for the first 2 hours for clients or customers, right? So I have an hour where I'm working with my teams to get them going on projects, Then I have another hour where I do not answer my phone. That is simply XYZ. It might be bidding, it might be reviewing projects for the day, and whatnot. And where you allocate that time could easily be based on the time of the week. So we could say on Monday, we get everybody going. Mondays are always harder, so maybe we get everybody going for 2 hours. Then for 4 hours, we don't answer our phone, right? We are working on laying out the rest of the week. Because if I keep getting pulled in, I answer the phone and I can't get everything laid out, and then get my bidding done, and get back to people that are having issues, your work is going to expand to fill your time, and you're just going to end up working more. So effective time management is super important. Now we've defined our own leadership style, we've set up a brand, we've automated our processes, we're learning how to manage our time efficiently. Now we want to focus on how we can delegate tasks. Now, what we delegate will be defined by what we said was our leadership style. So for example, if I'm going to be a technician, meaning I want to do more of the work, that means I need to hire somebody to do sales or bidding or ordering or whatever it might be. So we need to, once we've defined our style, now we start looking to make sure that things that are not in our leadership style are delegated to somebody else to allow us to focus on what we do well. Side note, you want to make sure that you understand how your employees are as far as leader, technician versus manager, right? So if they're good at problem solving or good at any other issues like that, you want to know that so that that's where you can delegate to. You don't want to just delegate to somebody who's been there the longest or who wants to do something. The next one is pretty basic, and honestly, it's probably, you're going to have to be at a certain scale to where this makes sense, but it's automate the repetitive tasks. So if let's say you're doing $1 million in revenue, you probably have lead generation, and you want to make sure that as those leads come in, they get an email, they get follow-up emails. As projects are progressing, there's automations that say, hey, your project XYZ has been scheduled for X, and it's started and it's done, and here's your invoice. And so you want to try to start automating that process as much as possible. Now with AI and ChatGPT and whatnot, that area is moving really fast. So if you haven't started playing around with AI, I definitely recommend you start with that, just in a normal situation, not necessarily in automating your tasks, but starting to familiarize yourself with certain softwares is going to make automation in the future a lot easier. And as you utilize them now, it can help in other areas. So now we've worked on many steps to get to optimize pricing and bidding. Notice how we didn't start with that. Well, pricing and bidding is super important. When you're early in the business and startup versus exit, all this stuff will change as far as pricing and bidding. But at a minimum, you want to price and bid based on your brand, right? So the market's always going to dictate what you can get for your work. There's no doubt about that. But there are certain things you can do to optimize that, right? So communicate your value. Honestly, the best thing you can do to be successful in every step of this is manage customer expectations. So, we're going to be here X, we're going to, whether that's, okay, we're going to be here in 3 months, and then 2 months from now, you tell them on a specific date, and you start updating them so that they always know what's going on. Managing expectations keeps customers happy. Whether it's going to take you 3 months or 3 days is not the issue to keep a customer happy. If you start from the beginning, it's going to take 3 months to get to it, and then you get to it in 3 months, perfect. But if you say you're going to get to it in 2 months and it's actually going to be 3 months, that's when you really get into a lot of trouble with customers that aren't happy. You start getting phone calls and whatnot. Next step we're going to do is we're going to niche. It's kind of a fluffy word and it's super trendy right now. But what we want to do is we want to figure out who has the largest pain we can solve, and because they have the largest pain, we can charge more money because we're providing more value. So we want to focus on service lines that are more profitable and more painful to that customer. So for example, let's say I'm an electrician and I could do low voltage, I could do new construction, I could do remodel, and I could do service calls, right? Well, depending on your market, one of those could be more profitable than the other. Now, we're probably still going to do all 4 of these, but we definitely want to make sure that our branding and any advertising we do is focused on whichever one fits our model and whichever one we want to do more of, right? So if I'm doing all 4, but I want to move into low voltage, I should have a lead magnet on my website about low voltage. And it's not going to scare away other customers for everything, but it is going to allow you to bring in more of that higher profitable service line. Next, we've already touched a little bit on approaching the customer. And if you're in the trades, your customer could be, the homeowner like myself, or it could be, another subcontractor or the GC on the job. Either way, this is going to matter. We want to make sure that we're communicating very clear with what's going on. I highly recommend that you have like a weekly check-in, or even more frequently once the job starts. Imagine if you had a general contractor that you worked with, and you could have your system automatically update them as to where you're at, right? So we're on day 3, and you have, let's call them tasks in your software that says, okay, rough-in is complete. An email goes out to them that says, or a text that goes out to them that says, hey, rough-in is complete, let us know. We have you scheduled for whatever the schedule might be, a month from when the sheetrockers get done. But then you have it scheduled and you're telling them, hey, this is where we're at, we've completed this task, and now we'll let us know if the time changes XYZ, right? The main point is that you're managing expectations. So when you're managing expectations, you gotta be very careful to be very explicit, and I would say more frequent. So whatever you're doing, it's probably not as frequent as it could be, and you automate that process to do that. The next step is we're gonna now we've developed all these efficiencies inside the business and customer facing. Now we just got to bring our own staff up, right? So our own teams, we got to figure out how to make them smarter, get them in the right seat of the bus, right? So there's a general notion that you just got to make sure everybody's in the right seat, and I totally agree. Your manager may not be the right manager, your salesperson may not be the right salesperson. You want to make sure that they can communicate, that if you have branding on your shirt, that they're not negatively impacting your brand. So now we've walked through basically almost every aspect of your business. Now we're going to talk numbers. So what you want to do is you want to understand your numbers, right? Okay, revenue, direct costs, which is our cost of goods, indirect expenses, and our actual profit, right? So let's say my revenue is 100,000 and my cost of goods is 40,000. That means that of every $100,000 I make, $40,000 or 40% goes directly to materials and labor and other direct expenses. And then the indirect expenses sit down here. So it's revenue, cost of goods, indirect expenses to get to profit. The point I wanted to make here was just watch month over month, year over year. Just start watching that, right? You don't have to be a genius to understand that if your cost of goods goes down, you make more money, right? If revenue can go up and our cost of goods can stay the same, which is very hard to do, but the bigger spread we can have between our revenue and our cost of goods, the more money we make. The less indirect expenses, that's your software, accountant, other expenses that don't directly go to a job, the more profitable you're gonna be. So revenue, cost of goods, indirect expenses, profit. So now you've put in all the steps. You're understanding your numbers, you have a brand identity, you're probably generating leads, probably even more leads than you can handle, which is good because that allows you to raise prices and really price test your market. But the next step then is going to be scale. So we have a recipe, we have our blueprint, right? Now we can just pour gasoline on that blueprint to grow. Because we have the systems in place, because we understand our numbers, because we have the right people in the right seat of the bus, we can now grow comfortably without hitting as many hiccups. You're gonna hit hiccups for sure. People leave, jobs go bad, but you have now created the model that can be certainly fine-tuned, but you have the model that can now grow to make you more profitable and allow you to work less in the construction trades. So for more videos like this on how to work less and make more money, please subscribe. We also have a community to help you implement these processes and go way deeper discussing it and breaking it apart further and further into shorter videos. And if that interests you, please look at the link below for the Blueprint community. Thank you.